It's the month of October. It's spooky season. It's Wednesday. You all know what that means. I found Jacob Martin. It's time for another episode of Life in the Movies podcast. One of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. That is, I don't know where I'm pointing. That's Jacob Martin. Jacob, welcome back. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Been a little under the weather this week. I had a little bit of a bug yesterday, but aside from a scratchy throat, I'm feeling all right today, and it's always a pleasure being on for your podcast.
Yeah, I've been going through some allergies myself and been coughing and wheezing and that whole nine. I had to tell people it's not the vid, it's just ragweed. But yeah, this is the October preview, guys, and because we've both been our schedules have been just kind of just thrown everywhere. The preview tonight is not going to be as big as it usually is. We're just going to be covering the greatest hits. So going to be covering, I think, 5 movies tonight, and really the big ones. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about The Defenders episode 4. This is live, so if you are watching live, feel free to comment in the live chat. We will be taking questions and all that good stuff. But Jacob, I understand you said you have been under the weather, but besides that, have you been hanging in there?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. There's been some great stuff at school. I was able to. I had a great preaching opportunity this past Sunday, and that was really encouraging. And things have been going very well personal wise, and there's been some like YouTube's taken a little bit of a back seat in recent weeks, but I don't plan on abandoning anything on the channel. It's just I'm not going to be near as constant as I used to
Sure.
be, and I'm still trying to figure out a good, better balance on what to do going forward.
Yeah, a little bit of house cleaning. I do understand that tomorrow you have a stream talking about Aerosmith, right?
Yes, one thing I've enjoyed doing since going to school is doing these music projects where I go through the career of an artist and get other YouTubers and we do a discussion on the artist or band. And like I said, I previously did a ranking on Queen where we ranked our top 5 albums and top 5 songs. And I did one a few months ago on Chris Stapleton where we ranked his our top 10 favorite songs. With Aerosmith, I got Jason the Old Millennial and Briar's Music Showcase, and we're going to be ranking our top 5 albums and our top 5 songs from the band Aerosmith, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, Jacob's channel is going to be linked in the description of this video, so give him a subscribe there. A wild Jacob Collins has appeared. Hey guys, small talk represent indeed. Also, what's your thoughts on Dix the musical? Seems like an Oscar winner. Yeah, yeah. So if we had done the full preview proper, Jacob, we would have had to have talked about Dix the musical again, because instead of coming out in September, it's coming out in October. It got silently pushed. So there's that.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah, we might as well. But yeah, good to see you, Jacob. And a bit of house cleaning on this end on the channel. This coming Friday, Scary Mania 4 has officially kicked off and is going very well. Thank you to all of you who have checked those videos out. And shout out to Henry Mockingbird if he is watching the stream. Thank you for your comments today as well. But Scary Mania will be continuing throughout the month, daily uploads all the way through October. And then this coming Friday night, Jacob Collins will be joining me on this channel for a watch along. We're going to be watching along to the 1990 movie Nightbreed. He suggested it. I don't know what I'm walking into, but it's on Peacock, and I get Peacock, so I'm going to dive in feet first, if you will. So it's going to be Friday on my channel. You're already on it, so do hit the subscribe and click the bell to allow notifications so that you know when the stream goes live. Jacob Collins always brings the noise, whether it be good, bad, or otherwise. So stay tuned for that. But
also shout out to Jacob Collins. I enjoyed being on. I think I don't know. I think you probably enjoyed it too, Ryan. You were on the same watch party. It was good being on his channel last Friday for the watch along on Jeepers Creepers 2.
Yeah, and also shout out to Blacktastic Media. It was always nice to work with him. Will Dix the musical be on Scary Mania next year? No, it will not. It most certainly will not. Number one, it is not a horror movie. Number two, it's just not. Part of me kind of want to watch is it just for like the horrible review, or not the quality of the review, but just ranting and raving about how horrible the movie will be inevitably. But at the same time, is like I feel like that's 2 hours of my life that I don't want to give to Dix the musical. Like I have a lot of time for A24, but just not that. So there that is.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think that one, is that one going to be the film that breaks A24, or is that going to be just one that a
I
weird
mean, earlier
group of
this year we
people are
got
going to
Beau is
like?
Afraid, which I mean pretty much like showed that Ari Aster is not the kingmaker that we all thought he was going to be. He was like Hereditary Midsommar, which I wasn't a big fan of Midsommar anyway. But then you got Joaquin Phoenix playing four different versions of himself, and it just Wizard of Oz stuff. It just, I don't know. I've seen clips, and it just doesn't seem like something I would be a fan of. So I think A24 is kind of starting to lose whatever sanity they had left. But it's like A24 and Neon. They're in a battle of who can be weirder. It's interesting, but also not interesting at the same time. But I think with the grandstanding and hot dogging out of the way, Jacob, I think we can dive into Defenders coverage. So let's dive in. Defenders episode 4 called Royal Dragon. As the Defenders get to know each other over dinner, they're greeted by a series of party crashers, none of them friendly. So, yeah, this episode is, for all intents and purposes, a bottle episode. You see the Defenders, as you can see, Stick is right there. He makes an appearance here. And you kind of you get a little bit of a glimpse into a little bit more of who the Hand are, not by much, but enough to notice. And I think this was another pretty solid episode. I think with the last one, it was more action oriented, but here I think there was more talking, but the talking was good. I was riveted throughout. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought this was another good episode. I don't think it hit the high waves of the previous episode. That one had a lot of great, like you said, action that made the episode very memorable. This one's more slower pace, it's more dialogue driven. But I think seeing as this is the episode where you really get to see the defenders getting to know one another, their personalities clashing and trying to figure out what the next possible thing they need to do is, I think this was a welcoming episode. I like seeing Stick once again, who's kind of like, I guess they're trying to make him the Nick Fury of the group, I guess. And I thought that worked well for the episode. I liked the continued back and forth. I like uh, Matt Murdock actually removing the scarf and showing everybody who he is. I thought that was a really nice touch. I liked. I think Jessica Jones had the scene stealing moments in this episode because she walks out at first because she's skeptical of the hand and everything like that. But I love the last minute entrance she does at the very end where she drives the car, crashes it through the window, and knocks out some of the antagonists and Elektra. I thought that was pretty good. I like that. There's some pretty good stuff in here. I was annoyed though because the defenders were about to face Elektra, and then it cuts to a cliffhanger, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
come on! I wanted to see that fight.
Yeah, that was brutal. That was a very brutal cliffhanger. I mean, remember, this came out on Netflix, so this kind of fits into the binge model of like you're expecting to see the play next episode in the lower right. But last one from Jacob for the night. Just wanted to say thanks for the shout out and can't wait to see your thoughts on our collabs coming up. Can't wait to work with you too there, Jacob. But also, you guys planning on seeing Exorcist Believer this weekend? Take care. Well, we'll be talking about Exorcist Believer in just a couple of minutes, but but we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, pretty brutal. Like as soon as like they're squaring up, and then all of a sudden, end credits play. I'm like, oh, come on, I want to know what happens, and 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 I guess it did its job, but at the same time, I kind of hated the show for it.
Yeah, when cliffhangers end like that, you want to see the next one. It's very frustrating, and this is definitely one of them. But I got to shout out to all of the actors who are playing these characters because by this point, heck, even Iron Fist, all the actors are doing a good job at playing these characters, getting invested in these characters, and it looks like they're enjoying themselves in this show, which I really, really like.
Yeah, and honestly, Iron Fist has some of his best stuff going on, like not even in his own show. I care more about him in this spin-off than in his own show. It really does speak to the quality of the thing. And I will say I was a little tired of Jessica Jones like walking out. I'm like, Jessica, I get it. You've been through some stuff, but at a certain point, you got to understand that like there's bigger things than that. And like it's like what Professor X said to Magneto in X-Men First Class. You are dealing with things that are far bigger than yourself. So I don't know. I wasn't a big fan, but she does come back, and that moment is good. So I'll allow it. But at the same time, I'm just like, Jessica, come on. Like, stop whining, please.
Yeah, I think I get that frustration, but the character's sarcasm I just find very entertaining, and that's why I enjoy the character so much.
Yeah, but like I said, overall, pretty solid episode. I can honestly say at the halfway point, because remember, this is only 8 episodes, we are officially over the halfway point of the Defenders. And honestly, it's some of my favorite stuff in the Marvel Netflix, now Marvel Disney Plus side of things. I would happily put this over like Jessica Jones season one, heavily over Iron Fist season one. I think it would be Daredevil season one, Luke Cage season one, and pending what happens at the ending, this. So my top three would be Daredevil season one, Luke Cage season one, and the Defenders. And then there's the rest.
I'm not going to jump the gun just yet. I want to see how the Defenders plays out. But if it does play out, it would probably be in the top three.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you all think of the Defenders episode 4? Comment in the live chat or in the comments later. Love to hear what you have to say. Well, Jacob, let's get into talking about some October movies. And because we've been so busy, we can only really talk about the bigger things. But I think leading off things, we will be talking about The Exorcist Believer. I mean, this is a movie that the first reactions have already been coming in, and they have not been super great. So let's dive into that. But first, let me read the plot. When two girls disappear into the woods and return 3 days later with no memory of what happened to them, the father of one girl seeks out Chris McNeil, who'd been forever altered by what happened to her daughter 50 years ago. So Jason Blum is trying to do to Exorcist what he did to Halloween, basically. It's from the same director, David Gordon Green. Ellen Burstyn is back for apparently a Brinks truck full of money. You also have Leslie Odom Jr. in it. However, the reactions to this movie have not been kind. I think I've seen maybe one overwhelmingly positive one and some negative ones that say, like, Ellen Burstyn is completely wasted in this, or not, like, her role is wasted in this, I should say. So mostly mid, but some really negative and one sort of kind of positive. So we're all over the map at this one. And apparently Blumhouse paid $300 million to acquire the rights to The Exorcist in order to reboot this, and they plan a trilogy. And from last I read, this movie is tracking to make $30 million on its opening weekend, which was about the budget for this movie. So yeah, starting off real hot with this one, and I mean that in like the opposite way, like ice cold. But Jacob, I imagine you've seen the trailer for this by now. What do you think? And what do you think of The Exorcist as a whole?
Well, one of my hot takes is I think The Exorcist is overrated. I
I That's not a hot take. I agree with you on that. It's
I
a good
think
movie.
it's
Let,
a
let me just
yeah.
say it's a good movie. It's a good movie with Ellen Burstyn doing great work, uh, Max von Sydow doing great as Father Merrin. But when they say it's the scariest movie of all time,
Yeah.
I've seen scarier. Like, give me
Now,
1408. Like that
yes.
twist at the end. Oh boy. Like
Now,
that's scarier than The Exorcist. But I'm sorry, Jacob, I interrupted.
I'm sorry. There are some creepy stuff in that movie, especially in Linda Blair's performance.
Yeah,
There are some unsettling stuff there, but like you said, I have seen freakier stuff in movies. Jeepers Creepers, the first one, had more disturbing stuff in it than The
yeah,
Exorcist. That's a recent example. And I would even argue Hereditary had some freakier stuff in it than
I
The
agree.
Exorcist. But this one, I'm like, I don't really fully get the whole hype for it. And then when you get to the end where you got Max von Sydow as the priest trying to do the exorcist, and he's like, "The power of Christ compels you." Like, I'm sorry, I can't take that seriously. It turned into almost like a
I mean,
semi
you're
parody.
essentially going to be a man of the cloth, but not really a man of the cloth. So you would be an authority on this.
I feel like I couldn't take that seriously. It turned into a semi parody of itself, and I didn't. I wasn't too big a fan of the third act. It was just kind of laughable and kind of stupid for my liking.
I'm sure in its day, like in the mid 70s, it must have been terrifying.
Yeah. I'm always reminded when you get to the third act of Beetlejuice, who's like, "I've seen The Exorcist hundreds of times, and it just gets funnier and funnier every single time."
Yeah, that's a good
He's
line there.
probably referring to that scene.
Yeah.
But as far as Dominion goes, I could care less. It just looks like another one of those desperate attempts to revive a franchise that it probably didn't need. They're trying to make a trilogy out of it. Remember what happened to Halloween? Now, to be fair,
Yeah.
I liked Halloween 2018. I thought it was a good movie. But even when I saw that in theaters, I'm like, it did not need two other movies. I thought it ended
No.
well, and you're stretching it too thin. And guess what happened? They stretched the trilogy too thin, and you made two crappy sequels that hardly anybody liked.
Yeah. Halloween 2018 was actually pretty decent. I actually think the movie had some good moments. But then you had Halloween Kills, which made the people of Haddonfield just completely insufferable. And you're with these people a lot. And
Mm.
just I like I couldn't stand that movie. And then you got Halloween Ends, and I just got two words for you all: Colby Covington. Do I even really need to say anything more? Like the most useless character in the history of these entire movies. But yeah. No offense to the actor who played him, but just Great Caesar's Ghost, that movie was just like I watched it on Peacock. I paid technically $4 for it, and I still felt like I was ripped off.
Yeah. So,
Now, I don't want to like say that we're crapping on David Gordon Green because the dude can be good at what he does. He's producing a show right now called The Righteous Gemstones, which I think is very funny. So the dude can be talented. I just don't care for his Halloween movies except for the 2018 one. And this Exorcist trailer has just done nothing for me. Like seeing Ellen Burstyn, like good for her. It seems like she's getting what she has asked for. I believe somewhere she's using the money to pay for a scholarship fund, like for college students and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, that's all well and good, but at the same time, like you can only do The Exorcist well so many times. Like I'm old enough to remember when Fox was doing an Exorcist television show. I believe with Jared Harris. Actually, let me look that up because I completely like I remember those trailers. Like yeah, it was on Fox. The Exorcist. It lasted. It lasted 2 seasons, and it followed not Jared Harris, but a priest named Father Thomas Ortega, played by Alfonso Herrera. So there was an Exorcist TV show not too long ago, and it only lasted 2 seasons. So I don't know where this Exorcist fever was drummed up all of a sudden, but I don't know. I think this movie's going to it's going to be a wash.
Yeah, I can't imagine this one taking off. I think after the reception of the Halloween films, I think this one's going to crash and burn.
Yeah, and Blumhouse is not a bad studio by any means. They do create some very genuinely good horror movies. But I mean, they like Jason Blum has this thing like, I'm gonna take these dead franchises and breathe new life. I'm like, in the words of John Lithgow from the Pet Cemetery remake, sometimes dead is better. But
Mm-hmm.
let's move on now to a movie that I imagine will not be a wash. As a matter of fact, it has been selling out theaters quite a bit. Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour. Now, from what I have seen, this is pretty much going to be a concert film. But at the same time, it has been selling out theaters across the country. I think I read somewhere that Cinemark has like it broke a Cinemark record for like sold out theaters and stuff. And in a year where like Flash and Indiana Jones and all these movies have been struggling, here comes Taylor Swift. She filmed a concert and it's like selling things out. So it's like says something for Taylor Swift and her brand and her ability as a performer. But Jacob, I ask this as a very serious question. You a Swiftie?
I'm not a Swifty, but I like Taylor Swift. I had a crush on her when she was starting out. When she was like 16 when she put out
Yeah.
her first album. I was about 10 or 11, and I just thought she was a cutie. And I think I was getting into her music then, not because of the quality, which I think her earlier songs were catered more towards teen girls, but I gotta be honest, when she first made music, I thought she was hot. I just liked her
I
for
mean,
that.
she is a very beautiful woman. So,
She still is a beautiful woman to this day.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong. But I think the older I got, the more I appreciated like just how talented she is as a songwriter. And she's had a lot of really good songs up to this very day.
yeah.
Oh, I love that song, Jason. Teardrops on My Guitar is still one of my favorite.
Shout out to Jason, the old millennial. Teardrops on My Guitar is a very good song.
I love
But
that song. Great country song.
mhm.
Actually, I'll say this real quick. Um, I think Taylor was more consistent in like the early part of her career with like the country style music that she was doing, but I think she works better as a pop star. Even though
Really,
some of her music has been some have been a little hit and miss, but when she hits, she really hits, and she still puts out some great music. And
yeah,
as somebody who's listened to a lot of her stuff since the beginning, this movie does intrigue me. I haven't decided if I'm going to go out of my way and see it or not. I might not be able to if it's that sold out, but it'd be fun to watch to see Taylor doing what she does. And honestly, seeing the concert movie is a heck of a lot cheaper than going out of the way to see her in concert. Like those tickets are ridiculously high.
yeah. And I wanna make this factor pretty prevalent. This movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and I imagine they're gonna play a couple trailers in front of it. So you're looking at these people in this theater for 3 hours almost. So if we're thinking it like Taylor Swift is like such a big deal that's like it's like I'm releasing a concert film and theaters are selling out for a near 3 hour like movie experience. That really does say something.
Yeah, it is saying something. I think it's probably that long because that's probably the length of her concert, most likely.
Yeah, for sure. I see Taylor at every Chiefs game. It seems like yes, that is. If you know,
Yeah, I
you
heard
know.
about that. I wonder how you feel about that, Jason. I think because a little bit of a sneak peek on my channel. I'm with the whole Taylor Swift movie that's coming out. I am covering Taylor Swift on my channel. I want to like review all our albums and do like a
Oh,
big ranking and stuff. And I think Jason told me he was not a Taylor Swift fan, so he's probably annoyed seeing her on the TV since he's
but
a Chiefs
but
fan.
but I'll be on the lookout for those reviews when they do come. Like I said, Jacob's channel linked in the description. I'm not a fan. Oh well, that solves that mystery. But let's move on now from Taylor Swift concert film to Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon. Members of the Osage tribe in the United States are murdered under mysterious circumstances in the 1920s, sparking rather a major FBI investigation involving J. Edgar Hoover. So Martin Scorsese's new film, this is it. It's going to Apple TV Plus and theaters. It is 3 hours and 26 minutes long. With 20 minutes of trailers, you're looking at being in the theater for 3 hours and close to 45 minutes. I'm tired just reading that sentence out loud. But it's Scorsese, it's Leonardo DiCaprio, it's Robert De Niro. It's based off a book that I have read and have greatly enjoyed. So, I mean, I have to say that I am looking forward to this. But pack a lunch, folks, because it's gonna be quite a movie. But has Scorsese ever made a movie under 3 hours? I'm sure he has, but I swear he has his real bee in his bonnet, like in his like later movies, like about making them like 2 hours is like for amateurs or something. Three is where it's at. And I recently just watched Casino for the first time for my Scorsese month in the month of November here on this channel. And that movie is great. And it is over 3 hours long, or just over 3 hours long. However, my one problem with the movie is that there's a lot of repetitiveness. Like, there's so many times that Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci can yell at each other before I'm like, guys, didn't we just go over this? Like, seriously? But yeah, Scorsese is a real thing about making his movies 3 hours long. His recent output, not really a big fan of. I didn't care for The Irishman. Like, I respect it. I just didn't really care for it. Like, it was released Thanksgiving 2018 or 19, Thanksgiving Day, and like the day where people eat the most, and you're asking them to pay attention for over 3 hours to gangster stuff. I was comatose at certain points. I'm sorry to say, but I just was. But I can't lie, I am looking forward to Killers of the Flower Moon, if for nothing else, because of Leo, because of Robert De Niro, because of Jesse Plemons, and because of Lily Gladstone. From what I have seen of her briefly, she is good. And also John Lithgow is in this, and Brendan Fraser is in this too. So happy to see them. But Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I do like a lot of Martin Scorsese's films. As far as The Irishman goes, I didn't love it like everybody else. I do think it's a good movie, but I think the 3.5 hours was a bit excessive. And I
Mm,
think that's been a problem with some of his later movies, is I feel like they're way too long. I felt that way with Wolf of Wall Street. I actually really love Silence. That's a great movie, but The Irishman
yeah,
I felt like was too long
silence.
too.
I remember I remember I caught like one of the only screenings close to me of Silence at my local theater. It was a Tuesday night at 10:15 in the evening. I didn't leave the theater till nearly like 2 in the morning.
Ooh,
Or or I'm bad at math, folks. I'm sorry, but it would have been close to like 1 in the morning. But it was very very late at night, very early in the morning, and I was whipped. My parents were out of town, so I got dinner and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go see Silence. And oh boy, that movie was a tough watch. It deals with very tough material. I'm sure we can review Silence one day, Jacob. I'd like to have that discussion with you.
that would be a great discussion. That is a terrific movie.
But yeah, didn't care for Irishman. I did really like Silence, so it's a bit hit or miss. But Killers of the
Yeah,
Flower Moon,
I,
excuse me.
I, I'm excited to see
That's okay.
Killers of the Flower Moon because it's Martin Scorsese. The fact that both DiCaprio and De Niro are in this film. This is the first Scorsese film where Scorsese's two biggest regular actors are in the same movie together. Like, that's got a lot of great potential.
Hmm.
It's based on historical events. Usually, those movies tend to intrigue me if it's the right story. And there's a lot of intrigue in this story that I'm excited to see Scorsese tackle. I think I remembered reading Brendan Fraser was going to be in it, but I forgot about it. Till you brought it up, I'm like, yeah, I'll see Brendan Fraser in a Scorsese movie. That's a plus.
Yeah,
A
couldn't
little
have
scared
happened
of
to
the
a nicer guy.
yeah, a little scared of the runtime. Scorsese's not been the best at runtimes in recent years, but if the story's engaging, then I won't mind it as much. I mean, Oppenheimer was 3 hours, and that movie flew by. So
Yeah, runtimes don't bother me. It's what you do with your runtime that bothers me. And there's so many times, referencing Casino again, there are so many times that I can see Robert De Niro yelling at a drugged up Sharon Stone to where I'm just saying, can we just please get the daughter out of here and away from these horrible people? Please? I'm begging you. I don't even have kids, and I'm saying get the child out of this very bad situation. But Casino's still a good movie though, so and that review will be forthcoming in the month of November. But yeah, I guess my point is, I'm sorry that I went on that tangent, but it's what you do with the runtime that's what counts.
yeah, I agree. But I think a tighter Scorsese film would be nice. I mean, the last one that was tight, I thought was Hugo, and that's like in my top three Scorsese movies. That movie's amazing.
Hugo is fantastic. Yeah, Hugo is fantastic, and it is possible he can make like short movies, but for some reason he's like, it's got to be 3 hours plus for the cinema of it all. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, you can make really good movies that are like 90 minutes and sometimes even lower. Like, you can do that, but that's regardless. We excuse me. We both have not seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet, so the jury is still out. I enjoy Taxi Driver, Wolf of Wall Street, Aviator, and Shutter Island, but most of his movies are pretty rough.
Hey, Jason, I'm surprised considering uh your history of movies and your background. I'm surprised you like Wolf of Wall Street. I'm I don't really care for Wolf of Wall Street personally. I think it's a
I'm
bit too excessive and self indulgent in my opinion.
I'm watching it for the first time to prepare for Scorsese month. That and The Departed. So my lineup for the month is going to be King of Comedy, Casino, The Departed, and The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah,
All of them I have never seen up to this point. I've
yeah,
seen King of Comedy and Casino as of this stream. Haven't seen Departed and Wolf of Wall Street yet. So
yeah. The part is pretty good.
yeah, I've heard people say they gave it to Scorsese as like a thank you for his service, and like, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. It was funny, and I liked DiCaprio's
Yeah.
performance. Okay, very good.
Yeah, I would say I like the performances. That's like the highlight of the film. And I thought the story was wild, but I think like Martin Scorsese was like in his 70s when he made that movie, and it kind of disturbed me that he went that far with it. That's just me.
Crazy to think that that dude Jordan Belfort is still around and is still like in finance to some extent.
Yeah, it was just not a story that I connected with.
Yeah. Hey Jeremiah, what's up? I'm very curious what you think of Wolf of Wall Street. Also, hi Ryan, this live stream is great. Praise praise Christ Stockman. Not sure what that reference is. It is creepy, haha. Late as usual, I was making dinner. All right, well, you're here anyway, Jeremiah. That's what counts. But let's move on. Let's take a bit of a steep dip in quality, Jacob. Let's talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. A
Mm.
troubled security guard begins working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. During his first night on the job, he realizes that the night shift won't be so easy to get through. Pretty soon, he will unveil what actually happened at Freddy's. So I ask this very seriously to you, Jacob. What's your high score in Five Nights at Freddy's?
One, I've never played it, and two, I just never cared about wanting to play Five Nights at Freddy. And this movie just looks like a really cringy cash grab. I don't know what they're thinking on that one. And also, the other thing, Didn't they already make a loose Five Nights at Freddy's movie already with Nicolas Cage called Willy's Wonderland? If I wanted to
That's
see
what I've heard.
If I wanted to see a five, I haven't seen Willy's Wonderland. I've seen a Nostalgia Critic review of it, but I will say if I wanted to see a Five Nights at Freddy movie, I'll watch the one with Nick Cage in it. That just looks more fun than this generic looking horror movie that does nothing to me.
Yeah, you know, it's weird. I remember the Five Nights at Freddy's phenomenon like I can remember anything else. It was everywhere. Like kids were wearing five Freddy Fazbear's shirts. I'm like, see people playing it, and I never got on board it. But it was like I was like slow to the draw on this one because I remember when we got an Angry Birds movie in 2016 when the game had been out of style for like 4 years up to that
But
point.
and that's the other thing. Like Five Nights at Freddy's, I feel like is out of style. It's not as popular as it was whenever that game came out. So this movie is like several years too late. Are people
Yeah.
gonna care about Five Nights at Freddy's the movie? But then again, Angry Birds did well and it spawned a sequel, so what do I know?
Yeah, and I also want to shout out to Josh Hutcherson and Matthew Lillard. They are talented actors and they are attached to this. So hopefully it was worth it for them because I do enjoy Matthew Lillard. I think he is a good actor. He was great in the first Scream. I liked him as Shaggy in the live action Scooby Doo movies. Those are a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. Also, Josh Hutcherson, I've kind of seen him like from when he was a little kid up to now, like when he was in Bridge to Terabithia, kind of an underrated Disney movie, but oh boy, it's a tough movie to get through, like at any age. But then he was in movies like Little Manhattan and he was in the Hunger Games movies. So I've kind of seen his career like progress. So I think I may see it just for him or just seeing it. But from what I've seen of the game, never played it, it's terrifying. The trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's looks fine. God, the first Angry Birds movie was awful. The sequel was actually okay. Yeah, the sequel had no business being as good as it was, but it was actually quite good. It wasn't perfect, but I had far more enjoyment out of that than I did the first one.
Yeah.
And shout out to the director of the sequel. He actually retweeted my review of it, and I was not
Nice.
expecting that.
Yeah, I actually never saw Angry Birds 2, but I've seen the first one and I didn't care for it.
Yeah, but it's weird. Like you're getting like it's like we're gonna get like a Flappy Bird movie like next year. Not really, but I'm joking about that. But like nobody remembers that mobile game Flappy Bird where you're like punching it and the bird is like flying and you gotta maneuver him all around. It's like are we nostalgic for mobile games now? Is that a thing? I mean I'm nostalgic for Adobe Flash games, but I'm not expecting Papa's Pizzeria to become a movie. So I don't know. This is just weird. It's just
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I think people are trying to like really try to cash in on making as many video game movies as possible because of how big the Mario movie was. But the
Yeah.
Mario movie has staying power.
Hmm.
Five Nights at Freddy's, I don't really see it. I'd rather them make another Mario movie or Nintendo do other properties to adapt into movies. Like I know people are craving Legend of Zelda. I've never played it, but that's got more material for a good movie than Five Nights at Freddy's.
Do you remember the Battleship movie was a thing?
Oh
Yes,
gosh, that movie was horrible. I
I
hated that
saw it
movie.
in theaters. 2012, they desperately tried to make Taylor Kitsch into a thing. And Taylor Kitsch is a fine actor. He's done some pretty good movies. But man, they were trying to hammer him home in 2012, and it just didn't work. He was in John Carter, he was in Battleship, and he was in Savages. 3 movies that year, and none of them panned out.
Yeah, that Battleship movie was such a dumb idea to try to do Battleship the board game, and instead of doing a good submarine movie out of it, you turn it into Transformers Light. No,
What what
that was
was
awful.
Rihanna doing in this movie again?
Yeah, yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, but I also want I dude, I don't want to crap on Taylor Kitsch prematurely. He did go on to have a good career. He was in 21 Bridges, that Russo brothers movie with or produced movie with Chadwick Boseman that I actually liked. He was David Koresh in the Netflix Waco series. He was in the movie Only the Brave, which is a movie that I love to pieces. It's one of my favorite uh, natural disaster movies. So the dude would go on to, and he would also be in True Detective on HBO. So he recovered nicely, but man, they were trying to make him into a thing, and it just didn't work. But
Yes.
yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's. I mean, that's a weird thing to make a movie about in 2023. But was he in Wolverine Origins?
Oh
Yes, he
yeah,
was. He was.
played
He was
Gambit.
Gambit. He was Gambit. But let's talk about the final movie we'll be talking about tonight, The Killer. After a fateful near miss, an assassin battles his employers and himself on an international manhunt he insists is impersonal. So, technically, this movie is coming out in November on Netflix. However, according to Wikipedia, it's coming into select theaters in October. So, I'm choosing to count it for this one because, among other things, it stars Michael Fassbender and Tilda Swinton, and it's directed by David Fincher. So that alone piques my interest because Fincher, Fight Club, I mean, Fight Club, Seven, just those two alone, it already is like, I'm at least interested. And seeing what he can do on with I guess the freedom of Netflix or like not having to worry about the studio system. I'm not sure. It'll be interesting at the very least, Jacob. But what do you think?
Yes, I have actually not seen the trailer for this movie, but I don't think I have to because one, it's David Fincher, great director.
Hmm.
I love a lot of his movies: Seven, Fight Club, Benjamin Button, Gone Girl, Zodiac, The Social Network, all terrific movies.
Yeah.
I was not a big fan of his last movie that he did for Netflix, Mank, but that was only because that was kind of like an offshoot thing he did. It's not really the movies that he excels at making. You know, your suspense thrillers, crime dramas, and stuff. That one was like this like Oscar bait type drama dealing with like the creation of Citizen Kane. I mean, it was interesting, but it was kind of boring at the same time. I didn't really care for that one, but I can't fault Fincher too much on that one. He was trying to do something different, and the Oscars loved it, but I didn't really. But
I mean,
this one looks like
if you're gonna make a Citizen Kane movie, make an Orson Welles movie. I mean, it's not like they're short of like material to work with that guy. But anyway.
yeah. I mean Gary Oldman was good in the film, but
Hmm.
the movie itself was kind of a snooze. I liked, but I think what was I saying? The Killer, I think, is going to be Fincher back to his roots, and I think, especially when you got Michael Fassbender as the lead in it, I think there's a lot of potential for something great, and I'm curious where it's going to fall in the overall David Fincher ranking because he's hardly missed. Like I wasn't crazy on Mank. I didn't care for the game, and that was only because I hated the twist ending. But the rest of Fincher's movies are really good. I don't care for Dragon Tattoo's a rough watch, but it's still well made. Alien 3, I don't mind, uh, but it's the assembly cut. That one's the one to go for. And Panic Room, I thought was solid, and he has a really great career overall.
But I also love various songs throughout her discography, like Lover, Enchanted, Starlight, and Wildest Dream.
Oh yeah, Taylor Swift.
Jeremiah must be talking about the Taylor Swift movie. And yeah, Wildest Dreams is a good song, I will admit.
Oh yeah, Lover is a great song, along with Enchanted. Uh, One of my personal favorite of her pop songs is "Out of the Woods" from 1989. That's a terrific song.
Yeah, that's a good song too. I personally like Love Story, It might be a bit sappy to some, but I really like it.
Yeah, it's not really Taylor Swift had some bangers like that. You Belong with Me is one of my favorites in her early career. Jason already brought up Teardrops on My Guitar. Picture the Burn slaps as well. I think that's a good song.
Yeah. But yeah, out of all the ones we talked about, I think the one I would be most looking forward to would be Killers of the Flower Moon. But Jacob, what about you?
If I had to pick, phew, for me, it's a toss up between Killers of the Flower Moon and the Taylor Swift concert.
Wow.
It'd be between those two.
Yeah, it seems like a weird month. Like the really the only two horror oriented things in us in like the month of Halloween is The Exorcist and Five Nights at Freddy's. It's like weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the October preview. It's smaller than normal, but because Jacob and I have been kind of all over the place, we've had to limit it. But we covered pretty much, I think, the only movies worthy of note for this month. I mean, taking a look at the Wikipedia, I mean, you got like, unfortunately, Dick's the musical, but then you got Pet Cemetery Bloodlines, which is a sequel to the remake, and then you got the Kane Mutiny Court Martial. Okay, and then you got Dark Harvest and Dear David and Divinity. Probably movies that will probably be like in one ear and out the other. So I think we covered the highlights.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think this is a good place to bring it on home. And thank you, Jacob. This was fun as always. Thank you all to the live viewers in the live chat. And if you're watching the replay, comment your thoughts down below. Love to hear what you have to say. Jacob, you and Jason are going to be doing the Aerosmith video, or not video, but stream tomorrow. Do you have anything else coming up?
Um, probably not. Just depends on what I end up doing. I do have some uploads planned. Yeah, so I hadn't done for my previous what I've watched live stream. It's just a matter of do I want to upload them or not? But we'll see.
Well, like I said a couple times in this stream, your channel's linked in the description. Scary Mania will be continuing here on this channel all throughout the month. Earlier today, my video for the Old Dark House dropped, and that and there is that. And then to close out the 30s tomorrow, I'll be talking about The Raven, starring Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. So that review will be tomorrow. Or no, wait. Island of Lost Souls is tomorrow, starring Charles Lawton. The next day will be The Raven. Excuse me. But yeah, daily uploads throughout the month. Small Talk will be dropping next Tuesday. This podcast, Life in the Movies, every Wednesday. So yeah, a lot of stuff coming onto the channel. So if you have not subscribe, click the bell to allow notifications. So when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. Chase Spyro and Indiana Jones. Did anyone see any new movies in September? The only one I saw was the Paw Patrol movie, and it was much more remembered than I think it was much better than the first movie. I did not see that one.
Yeah, I didn't either. I did see the first Paw Patrol movie. I mean, for its target audience, it's fine, but for someone who has no connection to the Paw Patrol, it was just kind of eh.
Yeah, strange stuff. But yeah, thank you all so much for checking out the stream. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Y'all have a good night.
Night.
And now